this is Dominic, wedding DJ.
And this is Serena, wedding planner.
And together we are the Wedding Duo. We are here to talk all things weddings.
Planning a wedding can be stressful, but we are here to help.
So before you say, that's it, we're going to Vegas, don't go to Vegas.
Let's have some fun.
Join us as we answer your wedding questions and help navigate planning one of the biggest days of your life with the Wedding Duo. Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
We're here.
The Wedding Duo is a trio today. We have a guest.
Sometimes that happens.
It does.
We bring people on to chat when we are at a loss. Honestly, like the subject we're talking about today, I know like a little bit about, right? Because it pertains to our industry so heavily, but I'm excited to answer some questions that I know you guys might have. And that's why we brought someone else in to speak on it.
I think when you think about your wedding vendors, people think caterer, DJ, photographer, venue, and then you start getting these other ones, photo booth, the outside one. But this is a big one. We're talking about transportation with Joey. Joey, introduce yourself, my man.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Joey Medellin with Team One Luxury. And one of the divisions that we do have is transportation. Pretty important, getting everybody back and forth safely to the destinations that they need, especially when we have weddings with at the church, and then back up to the venue. So yeah, a lot of logistical things that happen on the back end to make sure that happens smoothly and precisely.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. And that's not even something I even had in my notes. I've got some show notes to talk about. But if you get married at the church, and I mean, you can jump in the minivan, I guess, right? But that's no fun. You want something fancy, something swanky, right?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this too. There's what Joey just touched on, which is safe transportation, getting people to and from places, especially if they've been drinking, right? Safely. And then there's what you just alluded to, which is pictures with a fancy vehicle, right? Something
swanky, bougie, if you will.
Those two things can be combined. You can get the fun, fancy, even like shuttles, right? Joey, you can talk on this too. Stretch limos, stretch Hummer. I don't know. They've got crazy stuff, right? Tell us a little bit about your most fantastic.
Yeah. When a bride calls you and says, I don't know what I need. Like, what do you have a whole arsenal of vehicles, don't you? It's fantastic.
Yeah. They, a lot of the normal stuff they usually get is, I'm looking for end of night transportation. What do y'all have? Or what are the minimums? How does it work? That's usually the number one question we get. How does it work? We understand that every wedding is beautiful and there's not one single wedding that's alike. Maybe similar, but not alike. And everyone has different needs. So we really try to do more towards the customizational part of the quote whenever we start working. So we have certain questions that we're already prompted on our website so that we can kind of start guiding us to where we need to be. Because traditionally, a lot of people, when they start looking into transportations, depending on the size of the vehicle, sedan, limo, whether it be 6, 8, 14, 16, and then the buses, it starts going higher and higher. 3-hour minimum, 4-hour, up to 8-hour minimum, plus everything else, all the little fees. But we really try to be here for the customer, for the client. And that's one of the things that we really love. When my wife and I opened this, it was really, how can we be a better service? And it really all came down to the day of our wedding. My family had limos growing up. It was something that my dad had, and everyone was at the wedding, so we didn't really have anyone that we could drive. But when we were trying to get the service, we call people from Corpus, Austin, San Antonio, and usually 9 times out of 10, Serena, you can vouch for this, transportation needs to get booked towards the end because you have to have all this information. So if you're booking at the end, that means the budget's a little bit less at that point in time. And it's expensive. Transportation is expensive, especially when you're looking for larger numbers. So we were actually on our honeymoon when we thought about the whole idea of opening up a transportation division that was with a twist, a little bit more on the customizational part. There's some of them that they just want 4 hours and it's 4 hours of service and it's good. But some people do like the fact that they have services in the morning, the afternoon, and then it's at the very end of the evening. But it really just depends on what the client asks for us. And we tend to send to the hill country area. That's kind of where we work at. So because we're centrally located, we're able to to provide that kind of, those kind of services where they're customizable. Although we have been getting requests to go 4 or 5 hours out because they've heard of us, and it's like on something like that we have to do a little bit different. We still come at a good price, especially if it's a vendor referral. We love our vendors. We love to make sure we can all work together and network. So.
Well, I can imagine the gas on the stretch Rolls Royce is probably a little expensive, but
it is. Yeah, we did one. So like I said, we send to the Hill Country. So your, Fredericksburg, Bernie, Spring Branch, New Braunfels, that Hill Country. That's our sweet spot. We love working here. But we actually had a vendor that's a DJ. And it was for a quince. It wasn't a wedding, but she was about 2 hours away, and they only needed for 45 minutes. And I was like, we usually don't do that, but because it's for them, we're going to do it. So I spent more time in driving. It was like 5 hours driving for a 30-minute drive.
Yeah, round trip. Oh my goodness.
So was it usually, I guess the getting down to the basics, it's, do you want just the bride and groom? Do you want the bride and groom and the wedding party? Or do you want la-di-da-di everybody, right?
Yes.
I mean, and then it's really a car, limo, or a bus, right? Or shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to just the bride and the groom, it gets something. We have like luxury SUVs. We used to have sedans. We had a Jaguar, and it was good, but we noticed that most of the wedding gowns, dresses, they need a little bit more room. So we upgraded and we went to SUVs. So now we have black luxury SUVs. And they get booked quite a bit. A lot of times we usually do end of night for the black SUV, picking them up from the venue to their hotel. Then we come back the next morning and take them to the airport.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. We have one coming up this fall where he goes, how far can you go? We need to go to, and like I said, like an airport. He's like, well, kind of, it's a port. And I was intrigued. I said, okay, what do you mean a port? He goes, well, we need to go to Galveston. But I don't want to leave my vehicle there because we're going to be gone for 2 weeks on a cruise. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, yeah. I said, the black car, we can definitely do that. So we'll be going to Galveston at the end of the night, one of these in the fall.
How many brides, when you pick them up the next morning to go to the airport, are still in their dress? So like, I'm going to wear it one more time.
No, I don't.
Because no, probably not.
I think they are so anxious and so ready to take that thing off.
Yeah.
Most of it's their shoes. I can't tell how many times they get inside, and then of course we introduce ourselves, and we always like to make sure we leave something memorable for them, so we'll get them a little treat. A lot of times we gift them a bottle of bubbly. So after they've gotten inside, and, we also do a complimentary red carpet service. So we literally lay down the red carpet, the stanchions, the whole night. You're VIP, And after everybody's said and done, we put everything out. We usually just knock on the window, tell them, the chauffeurs tell them who they are, and that's when we give them the gift. And 9 times out of 10, just don't mind me. I'm taking off my shoes. I gotta let my feet relax.
I'd be impressed if the bride still has them on at that point, because usually they're like, after the ceremony, get my boots, get my slippers, get my Crocs, whatever they're going into. But
so I want to talk about what comes up when you're having conversations with clients. So you're talking about, it gets expensive, right? But what are, like, in your experience in the industry, what are clients going to be looking at price point wise? And I'm not asking you for like your prices, but just, are they looking at per hour? Are they looking at like what different prices are like involved? Like, are they paying for mileage? Are they paying for gas? Or what are they going to be looking at on an invoice?
It's been looking for the time. Yeah. The time used. One of the things that we do a little bit differently on our end is that we actually don't start our time until we get to the first destination, and then we kind of go from there. Traditionally, yes, most people will charge that drive time. If it's a 4-hour minimum, and you're coming, let's say we're right in the middle of Austin, San Antonio. Amazing companies in both cities, but some of those times, you might only need it for an hour surge for, let's say, end of night, and you're like, well, what are we gonna do for 4 hours? Well, the first 2 hours are done with inbound and outbound plus the wait time, and then your 30 minutes to an hour drive. So that's how they get the 4 hours. We traditionally, what we do is if we're picking up in one of the local ones, or what we call local, like I said, Spring Branch, Hill Country, we just start our time from when we arrive. And then we usually arrive at least a good 15 minutes prior to kind of sit up and stage and kind of go from there. On average, at least for our preferred venues, we're anywhere between $450 to $500 for the limo for the whole service, what we're doing. For some of the venues that we're not at as much, normally it's anywhere between $750 or higher, for those. But yeah, a lot of anybody that we work with quite a bit, we definitely like to spread the love and help out and, save them some money.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too, so that's for like the couple, right? But what are people looking at if they get like, say, like a party bus, like something that they're going to transport wedding party and guests, like from a
Well, a
hotel?
couple of his vehicles have that stretch. He has a stretch rolls, right?
Yeah, I do. We've used our stretches. It's funny because the Rolls Royce stretch limos, we actually 95% of the time we use them for end of night for the bride and groom. But whenever we're doing something where it's the bridal party having to go from the hotel to the venue or hotel to the church, they usually will book both of them, one for the guys and one for the girls, because most of the time they don't want to see each other, prior to. And we've done a combination, so we've done like want to go with the groom and groomsmen, and the other one will come out with the bride and bridesmaid. And then one of those rolls will stay behind, and we'll bring our stretch Escalade, and that takes the entire wedding party, and then the bride and groom will go. That's one option. The other
That's
option
some
is
coordination right there.
yeah. The other option, a lot of moving parts on the back end. Another option would be where we've done. They say they want to keep it all Escalade, right? So we do this a lot at Park 31, where there's a beautiful church just down the road. The mom, dad will and the bride will go in our Escalade SUV, and the groom and the rest of the wedding party comes in the Escalade limo. We take them both. The SUV is done for the day, and then the actual Escalade limo waits for the entire party and the bride and groom, and it's a fun ride all the way back. So those are the things that that's how we talk about customization, when we kind of put everything together to what they need, because sometimes you don't want to just have that one vehicle, and we make it where it's cost effective, where you can, move things around and have the vehicles that are going to give that wow factor, because, sometimes they're like, I really want that one, but I can't have it sit there 8 hours or 9 hours, whatever it would be. So, but yeah, we've done a little bit of everything. That's why we ask a lot of extensive questions so we can build the best package for them.
Well, if the couple want like a party, they always think about the reception. People think about the ceremony. But if you have something fancy, it's like just the middle part. Getting there is half the fun, right? I mean, that can be. I've seen some TikToks where they're in the video, in the party bus, in the stretch limo, and I'm like, man, that rivals my dance party at the end of the night. Like, come on, you're having more fun in the limo than you did at the dance party. But
I'm going to be Debbie Downer here now, because I usually am.
Wah, wah.
What are like rules then, right? Like for something like that, like, do they just go nuts or do you have to like kind of put like, I don't know, limitations?
Let's get to it. How much puke do you clean off the floor at the end of in the party bus?
Thank God we've been blessed that we haven't had to do that. Yes. Yeah. I think maybe one time someone was starting to get a little sick. We pulled over because we saw that they were not feeling too well. We kind of waited out for them and made sure they were good. And we were good to go. But no, we've been very fortunate. We've had amazing clients. A lot of repeat clients. It's always nice whenever we have a bride that we did their wedding, and then they call us for their friend's bachelorette trip and their friend's wedding, and that's really how it's been going. It's been an amazing ride these last few years to build these. Everyone can have a customer, but have a client that keeps coming back, that raving fan. That's what we're all about, and be able to leave that mark where they're like, hey, you know what? Even if it's for a wine tour, or a business trip, or a trip to the airport with family later on. They usually come back, because one of the questions we do ask is, how did you hear about us? And a good 90% of them are all, referrals from a previous, event or a friend that did.
Oh, it's great. Birds of a feather too. Sometimes the bridesmaids are engaged, or there's somebody, the bride's brother I'm doing one. I just did a wedding last weekend with y'all, and I'm doing with you guys. And then in January, I'm doing the bride's brother. And I was talking to her folks and saying, I'll see you again in a few months, by the way. But it's great because you already know half the guests, as long as you do a good job. If it was a terrible event, I'm like, I better recover. But that doesn't happen.
But to answer Serena's question, so we do have, like everyone else has contracts, right? So we make sure that we do put a lot of that in there, especially like, because, Dom's seen them, they're kind of fancy. So we have like those butterfly doors in our limo. So we make sure that we put on there, make sure it's on contract on paper that we're the ones that are opening up, so it doesn't cause any damage. Because if there is damage, you're gonna have to pay for it. So, but we go through all these things and we make it fun. It's not like you can't do this, or this. We make sure we explain it to everybody. The chauffeurs that are there, gets to know the party very well. I can't tell you how many pictures we get from the guest inside the limo or with the driver outside, saying this is the best night ever. We like that connection. And that's really why I don't consider having a very large team. I mean, we have about, I think it's eight chauffeurs on the team. We cross-train everybody, with everything else that we do. But these specific individuals, they connect with either the guest or the bride or the groom, and they really, they'll actually ask for them by name later on. So we're very fortunate to have an amazing team.
When do they get the hat? Like they finish training and then there's like a hat ceremony where they get the hat. So there's a situation that you and I talked about not long ago at an open house. And it's that at the end of the night or during the night, sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'll get on the mic and somebody comes up and says, hey, the first shuttle is here. The first trip back to because you had 2 trips from the hotel in a bus, let's say, or shuttle, 2 trips to bring everybody there. And then there's that first trip at 9:00 and the event's going till 11. And the driver sits outside with nobody on it, or just Papa and Grandma get on, and they end up driving because they have to go. They have to drop it off and then get back for that last trip. Mm-hmm. Nobody goes on the first one. Everybody wants to go on the last one. So how do you address that?
So we actually have meetings, with the client, and we find out who do you know is going to go earlier, who do you think is going to go earlier, and start putting down the names. We actually ask for almost essentially a guest list, if you will, so that we kind of can put things together. It's important for us to at least have a head count. That's the main thing, especially on anything that's large group, so that we know, 40 going, 40 coming back, and we'll touch based on that in a little bit. A head count is different than number of rooms. Because I can't tell you how many times people have been telling us, oh, we have 20 rooms reserved. I'm like, okay, well, that each room has 3 people, 5 people, 7, makes a big difference in the number of, right? But we literally do talk to the client and tell them, okay, so you have, let's say 80 people that are going to use the transportation. We need to make sure that we'll have an early return, because there's always people, it doesn't have to be the grandparents. It could honestly be cousins, friends that are just tired because they're long days. Weddings are long days. And we account for everything. We account for how many people need to go in early, how long it takes for the vehicle to go there and come back, and not GPS, how long a large vehicle will be able to go in and come back, and then stage up and get ready to go for the next one. But the most important thing we do is we always have a plan B, because it's 9 times out of 10, they might have, let's say out of 80 and 20, we're going to go on the early return. We usually have a good maybe 10 they want to go out. So we make sure that we have ample amount of room on the final run to go out. We'll never just have where we have just enough, because when you have just enough is when people get left behind.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think it would be important too to maybe have that conversation with those guests, like you are on the early shuttle, right? So when they call for the early shuttle, that means you need to go. That's your ride, right? There's not going to be space, maybe. Well, hopefully there would, but like you said, you wouldn't want to plan.
And that's when we work really closely also, because one of the things we always ask them early on is the first thing we like to know is who are their planners, because that way we can actually start letting them know. Because on the back end, on the day of, we don't like to bother the client at all. They're getting ready. They're having a good time. We usually ask for a day of contact, and we let them know, hey, the vehicles have departed the office. They're going to the hotel. We picked up 10. We're going from there to the venue. So that way they know exactly what's going on. And a lot of times really don't need to have a conversation with anybody, as long as they know, because the planners have so much going on, but they know, okay, here's a group of 20. Here's a group of 10. Or here's the early ones that are coming for the photo, at the early part of the day. But yeah, having that constant communication, that's one of the things that really does set us apart, is that we're constantly communicating with our individuals, especially with the planners, to let them know what we got going on. And one thing we are really big on, we stick to the time. We do build in a little bit of cushion, but we never like to play with that cushion, because you don't know what's going to happen on the road. We're bound to everybody else, the traffic, a breakdown or an accident,
Construction.
Yes, construction is huge. So that's one of the things that we like to make sure, like if it's 10 o'clock and we don't have anybody, we tell the clients that, like, we have to leave at this time to be able to make everything else work. And then we always try to make sure that we have a liaison or someone else letting know, okay, this bus is left, but here comes another one. Don't worry about it. But yeah, we make sure that we stick to the schedule so we can make sure we execute everything correctly.
So a lot of times too, like there's one of the venues in town that has a beautiful ceremony site, but it is not close to the reception. I mean, it's on the same property, but here in Texas, people have 300
Lots of
acres sometimes,
space,
and they want to
yes.
get married down by the river, but everybody parks by the reception. And that's when there's like a shuttle, like a smaller one. It just makes multiple trips back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
But that's another thing. If your venue has that, you need to have those questions, account for that, and then maybe reach out to the Joeys of the world and say, hey, I just need a shuttle from reception to ceremony and back in that hour and a half window when that's all, when all those people are coming and going. But that's like another whole thing in the transportation world that some people don't account for, right?
Is there a thing too, Joey, like about stuff? I always think about this. Like your bridesmaids, right? Like, do they bring a ton of stuff with them? And do you have like, I mean, I can only imagine, right? They're coming from the hotel.
Yeah, if they check out.
Yeah, if they check out, they've got bags. And do they sometimes run out of room? I don't know. Like,
My God, if it's your stuff, there's a lot of stuff.
So we definitely, that's another question we always ask too. Especially if we're doing day transportation and we're picking up at hotels or resorts. Because you're hit it around the nail. 99% of the time, they're bringing things with them. Especially if they're going to if they're picking them up at the hotel, the wedding from this weekend, we picked them at the hotel. Yeah, it's a very large stretch Escalade limo. And we only had, I think it was 11 people in it. Plenty of room. And that's the first thing everyone said, oh, that's huge. All this just for us? And I was like, and your things. And of course, by the time it was all said and done, all of the bride and bridesmaids were put in, and a good 30% of that was carts, dresses, bags, totes. So
I know. So that's something I think people don't even think of, right? They've got to account for that. If they're getting transportation, are you bringing your things with you? And have you communicated this to the shuttle agency, the transport agency? Like, we're going to need room for our bags or our dresses to make sure that they know, right?
And that's one of the biggest things also that we, like for end of night, I remember when we first started getting into this, there were certain questions that we would ask in amazing planners, but they would question us like, why would it matter how many luggages they have? I said, well, it matters to us because we need to know how much room to account for, especially if we're providing, let's say like the red carpet or stanchions, or we have something else in the vehicle, because we always like to make sure the cars are looking clean. So we keep certain things, but we can move them, put them in the front seat. We try not to do a lot of that stuff during the send-off. We want to make sure it's ready. So when the car arrives, doors are open, things are set up. We're not, playing musical chairs with our things. And it's important for us to know, like, hey, we're going to need, 2 bags for the groom, 3 bags for the bride. Sometimes we are going straight to the airport or the hotel next to the airport where they're going to be carrying a lot of things. So after a while, when people started working with us, like, oh, okay, they're asking important questions. It's for a reason.
There's a reason behind it.
And most of us, once you've done, like in any industry, any profession, you learn by screwing it up. You'll get there and you'll be like, okay, note to self, don't do that again, or prepare for that, or ask that question up front. Anybody in any industry, you've done something and you're like, why did I not ask that question? But it gets seared into your brain. You're like, oh, it's like a brain bruise. Like, I'm never going to let that happen again. Not on my watch.
Those are the best times though, because I feel like, that was the most, you can't put a dollar to that. You learn so much from those situations, and you're able to kind of keep developing things to make things even better, for that to happen.
Okay. So here's next question that will help our listeners. If someone, let's say, has a ceremony at one location and it's like on Google Maps, it says 20 minutes, right? How much time would you say they should actually allow for that trip?
A minimum of adding an additional buffer of 10 to 12 minutes. I know it's not like an even number, but 10 to 12 minutes a minimum. It also depends on the city you're into. So if you're in a very large city and you're at like we do a lot of work for the Marriott hotels, and there's a hotel you work with nearby that's only, I think it's 7.8 miles away, which would normally take about 12 minutes in a car. We take 25 minutes to get there, not because we're just, cruising and having a good time, but because when we have to get out of that parking lot, we have to account that we got to take 2 lanes to get out of that parking lot. And it's also there's an exit ramp that comes out from Interstate 35. So we can't just whip around and go. We have precious cargo. We have people in the back. We have to make sure we can gradually take those 2 lanes and keep on going. And we will never pull out of a parking lot unless we have plenty of room.
Yes. So you could be sitting there for a few minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
I could see that.
Yeah. So a lot of times when we actually create a timeline, kind of like the Amazing Wedding Duo, my wife and I also, we do the planning as well too. So we know the logistical part of how important it is to have, things in order. And one of the things that we like to do is give them a timeline of what we like to do, especially if we're doing something. We've done weddings where we do transportation for the entire weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it lets people kind of know and gives them an idea of what to expect. And one of the things we usually get questioned is, why do you have 25 minutes for this trip when it should only take 12? And so we kind of explain to them why the reason is. Because we don't like to take the curves too tight, because you're going to curve check. We can't take them too fast, because you're going to have usually people when they're in the limos or in these larger vehicles, they're going to have, doesn't have to be alcohol, but they're going to have a glass of water, and if you're taking that turn too fast, there goes the water. So
you could have a disclaimer and say, if you ever hear me say, hang on, that means like, cover your drink, because I'm about to be on two wheels coming around this corner.
I don't think that would work.
Oh, you should do that. Put it in the clause. If you ever hear the driver yell, hang on, and or the hat gets turned around backwards.
It's about to go down.
We about to go. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, no, I think that's important too. And then I'm sure there's a little bit of that is, go find Aunt Julie. She's supposed to be on the shuttle, oh right? God. Like there's got to be that kind of thing. Even though, like you stated, it's important for you guys to also stick to leaving on time. That's why you set the expectations with the clients beforehand and let everyone know.
It's been nice because the clients, usually it's the bride and groom or the parents that are booking us. When we've been talking to them for a little while, they understand. They're like, you know what, if they're not there, then we're paying for it. They should have been there on time. And I said, okay. I said, we'll do everything we can to make sure everybody's on there. And we usually always ask them this. This is another one of the important questions we ask them. Who is especially when we're doing guest transportation, who's your VIP guest that has to get on to make, and we usually have one like an Aunt Jane or grandma or somebody that's very important that we need to make sure that they are on that vehicle back and forth, because they're, either walking down the aisle. So those are the ones who we'll have a list of, 20 people, but where's, like this past weekend, where's, Aunt Mary Jane or that one person that we know we needed to have. And all that stuff is very important to have.
I met her. She did a dance with the groom as well.
No, that's good. Because I could imagine, if Uncle Freddie is officiating the ceremony and he is not on the first shuttle, we are not starting said ceremony.
And that could put a damper on the whole day.
That's a great thing, because you probably had it where like you get suddenly somebody's getting a text like, Aunt Betty didn't make the shuttle. You're like, and then everybody's like, sorry guys, we're going back, right? There's your extra 12 minutes right there. So here's another thing that I've seen, and I don't know if this is just something people don't account for, if it's just like miscommunication, or if it's just bad planning, but there are nights, and it's never been with you, let me throw that disclaimer out, where I know there's a shuttle and it's outside, the guests are leaving and they all pile in there, and I'm like, thank you, good night, everybody. I start putting my stuff away. It takes me about a half hour, 45 minutes to pack up, depending on how much stuff I have. And then I go out and start loading it up. The bus is still there waiting for somebody. And I can just see the people on the bus like, I didn't know we were going to have to wait 45 minutes because either maybe there's bridesmaids that ran back to get some stuff, or that people are drunk and they're looking for somebody and the driver's just like, I can't go yet, or whatever the communication is. But talk me through that, because that's got to be.
The way we do that is that we know from experience that your last people that usually leave are either really close relatives or wedding party. 9 times out of 10 at the wedding or any wedding reception or wedding venue, they have to go back and get all their stuff from the groom's suite or the bride's suite. So we account at the very last bus. We usually leave. If the send off, let's say, it's at 10:30, we give them an extra 20, 30 minutes, and that's when we start the actual last trip for them. So we let the chauffeur knows. And any of the guests that are on that vehicle, we let them know, hey, this is designated for the wedding party, who's actually still getting a few things from the venue. This one will not leave till XYZ time. Yeah, because that's usually what happens is they're waiting for that groomsman or bridesmaid or someone that's doing their part to help out the bride and groom, but that doesn't get communicated to everybody else.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so I think like the overwhelming message here is communication is key, right?
For sure.
And we talk about this with the other parts of the wedding, but this may be a part you just didn't even really think of, right? And so if you are considering getting some type of transportation for yourselves or for your entire group, talk through this with the company you're hiring, figure out a plan, and then communicate that to your guests, to your wedding party. Make sure it is on your wedding website, that you have somebody in charge that knows the timing of each shuttle, of each vehicle, so that there's an answer to those questions that people are going to have.
Yeah, the communication, I can't tell you how it's one of the most, it's a crucial thing to make, especially on the transportation side. You're right. In weddings or large events, it's important, but in the transportation, when you're moving individuals from one place to the other, it's super important. And that's why we make sure when we are doing things, we let the planner know. The planners are the ones that have to know what's going on. God forbid something happens. There are mechanical vehicles. If something were to break down, you need to let them know ASAP so that they know what to do. But if something happens and nobody communicates, or they just we'll figure it out.
That's not how it works. And I have had an experience, I'll just tell you guys, where, and this again, not Joey's company, but a different company was late to the send off, and you can imagine what this does to that time of the night, because the vehicle is not there. We've got guests lined up for the send off. We've got a photographer who's almost off the clock waiting to take those pictures, right? I've got the bride and groom stuff ready that I've got to put in the car. So you want to talk to your transportation company about getting there early for the send off, right? They need to be set up. They need to be ready to go before the actual send off time, not driving up right at 11 o'clock, right? That doesn't help anybody.
Because we got to be out of that venue in an hour too. And all the family's like, we got to go start cleaning up. They're going to start charging us if we're not out by midnight. And we're all standing there waiting to light our sparkler. That's a mess.
Exactly. So that is something, like, just an experience I have gone through personally that I learned from, and will always contact the charter company and give them my cell, text them day of after I've had a conversation with them and say, this is the time, just a reminder, who's your driver, right? Like, so that I have direct line to them.
One of the things that would always be great too is, and not everyone has it, but it's very easy to be implemented. Maybe a supervisor, because I know this show goes out to so many people, but ask them if they have a coordinator, ask them if they have some sort of logistical person, not just a dispatcher, because a dispatcher is going to tell you, okay, hey, welcome to ABC Transportation. Yeah, looking at the screen, vehicles here. But someone that can actually say, okay, yeah, he or she will be 12 minutes out. He's arrived. He's there. Because that's important to be able to they're needed for a small part of the day or night, but it's the most important part, right before the ceremony starts, and to get everybody back home. And the last thing, and this is why we live with plenty of time and we drive, safely, and thank God we have an excellent record and no accidents, no incidents, no nothing, is we always plan accordingly ahead of time. If the GPS plus the way a larger vehicle drives says it's an hour, we give ourselves an additional 30 minutes to get there. We rather be safe than sorry, because you can't redo these weddings. I guess you can, but it's expensive. You can't go out there and be like, okay, we'll come out tomorrow, guys, and we'll do the ceremony time, So it's very important that the transportation gets there on time and that they communicate. And if they can, and they're willing to, definitely have them, send some sort of itinerary to the planner. And if they're going to be doing early returns, have them put out there, hey, can you, to the planner, to let the DJ know, to announce them at this time. We don't just sit in our vehicles. We open the doors, make sure they're there. But if it's getting close to that 10 minute before we leave and we haven't seen much movement, we tell them, please, we let the chauffeurs know kind of who to look for, the name of the company, the person in charge, and walk inside. Do your due diligence to make sure people are coming out, because you can't just sit and wait.
So here's another thing that happens a lot. And some of you listening are going to be like, not on my day. I'm going to party all night. It is a long day. It's an emotional day. You're exhausted. There are nights where we're supposed to go to 11, and at 9:45, the bride's like,
I'm done.
I am tapped out. Last song, DJ. And I go, wait, hold on. I know you're done, but let me get the planner. Because they usually come to me first, like, let's call it. Let's be done. And I'm like, if there's a send-off vehicle, that's a thing. Like, wait a minute. And Serena and I have done this many times where she's like, hold on. I got to text and see if we can get the car early. I'm sure you've been down that road.
So what is your policy? Yeah, on that.
We've done that with actually Serena's call before, where situations have come up where they're like, I know it's not, and sometimes it's not like 10 minutes. You're talking about like a whole hour before. We have our vehicles, unless, sometimes, or the vehicles are booked throughout that afternoon or evening. But we try to make sure we give ourselves have a standby driver and the chauffeur that's ready to go for that night in case we need to. There's been times where like the driver's supposed to go out for the 11 p.m. send off. It's usually me. I'm the standby. I get everybody else gets first pick. And if something happens where they are needing to leave an hour earlier, I'll check with the chauffeur first, make sure, hey, can you make it safely, to our place to pick up the vehicle? If not, don't worry, I'm very quick. I just jump in, have a suit, and then I take off.
There's your clause right there. Hang on. Put the hat on backwards. Joey's on the road.
Yeah, as long as we have a little bit of a heads up. But sometimes, especially in the hill country, and you guys know this, that travel time is far. And we'll do everything we can to get there earlier, but it's we got to watch out for those lovely deer and those 45-mile-an-hour zones. So, but yeah, we're always careful about them. We try to, anticipate that doesn't happen, but it has. It's only a handful of times, but luckily we've been able to get there.
Well, that's one that nobody can get mad if the scheduled time, you try, right? We always are like, we'll try,
Right.
Otherwise get your Subaru up there, because that's
what you're going to get. Oh my goodness. Well, tell our listeners, Joey, where they can find you and your company.
Yes. So on the website, we have team1luxury.com. Our phone number is 830-237-2038. We are located here in the New Braunfels area. And also on social media. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're under Team One Luxury Limousines or Team One Luxury Events. You'll find both of us on there. So,
and you spell out the word one, right? ONE, not the number. Yeah, right.
Right. Awesome. So, if you guys are local and you're looking for transportation, please check Joey and his team out. I think this has been super helpful. And this episode spawned from an anonymous email that we received asking about, she was giving feedback about her struggles with transportation at her child's wedding and asked if we would talk about it on an episode. So then we thought we know someone. So we brought Joey in.
You mentioned it to me. Joey and I have talked about this for months. Like, dude, I got to get you on the podcast, man, because this is a topic that we really need to talk about, because it's something that gets overlooked, and there's a lot of details involved in the transportation that I'm like, I know some of it, but Joey does this for a living. Let's bring Joey on. So.
Well, yeah, one of the most important things too that we try to get with everybody is if you're going back to, if we have a little bit of time, because it's important when you're doing your guest transportation, when you have anything over 20, you're talking large group. Most of them are 40, 60, 80, 100, 150, is knowing at least the head count. And it's really, because it puts a damper, whenever that we had one particular wedding, we had the mother of the bride booked, kind of like what you said, everyone brings all their stuff. The bus, it could hold, the 30 people, not a problem, but they needed a bus, they needed transportation for the wedding party, which was only, I think, 15, 16. But they were also bringing all the personal decor. They were bringing all their own bags and everything. And unfortunately, it got all worked out, but there was some guests that tried to sneak in and wouldn't get out of the bus, and then it left 3 bridesmaids outside with all these things carrying, and they're like, and the chauffeur is calling me, goes, "There's no room, but it's full." And I said, "Send me a photo so I can see." So we looked at the cameras. I'm like, "Oh yeah, those last 5 people back there, they weren't on that earlier," because we had photos of everybody. I was like, "You have to ask them nicely." It turned out to the whole thing that the mother of the bride had to come in and tell them, "Hey, we'll get you a ride. I'll give you a ride, but this bus is only for all of my stuff." Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. But going back to the hotel, whenever you're moving people back and forth, if you can, it's very helpful. Make sure you guys give if you can, the head count, not the number of rooms. Like if it's, hey, I have at the Marriott, I have 30 rooms booked. That usually doesn't coincide for everything, like how many people are going to be in there. And to save you guys money, if you have 200 people or 100 people staying at a hotel, I can guarantee you that not all 100 people are going to use the transportation. Make sure that you try not to. I mean, unless you want to have buses booked and ready to go on standby, that's great, but they're expensive. So if you can, just really try to narrow that down and ask maybe on your invitation and put on the check here, like you usually do, like for the meals, but check on here if you're going to use transportation so that you have that solid number of people that are going to go out there. Because one of the biggest things we try to do is save the client money. That's actually our whole tagline for Team One Luxury, is making luxury affordable. And transportation is really a luxury. Not everyone, you don't have to have it. You can drive yourself back and forth. But my biggest thing that I can give to people whenever they're needing that is really find out how many people you need because when you're booking buses, you're talking big money. Anywhere from as little as $1,500-$1,800 to upwards to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on the distance, how far you're traveling. Most of these buses are asking for 8-hour minimums. So it adds up. And the last thing you want is to see that you have a bus with nobody on it. That money could have been used for your honeymoon fund or something. So those are the little things that I think that I would always love to be able to pass it on to somebody else, especially the newlyweds, because money's scarce. It doesn't come on trees, and you can definitely use it for something else.
And those are such good pointers, Joey. Like asking about transportation, if people are going to utilize them, narrowing down that head count so you can save yourself money, right? So that you can really communicate that to your transportation company. I have a pretty good idea that I just need transportation for 30 people, right? Rather than saying like, all my guests are staying at this hotel. I need to cover 100 people, right? Yeah. That's such a good point.
And the thing is, we get that all of our inquiries, sometimes we get, staying at this hotel, and usually we reply back, thank you so much for choosing Team One Luxury. How many people will be needing transportation? And they reply back with 100 people will be staying at the hotel, and they want the buses for that. And I'm like, I think have you considered that not everybody might use it? And we'll do what the client wants. If the client wants 10 vehicles, we'll do it. Yeah. But it's like, we're trying to save you money. So let's just kind of get some details worked out. Because like I said, anything for large group transportation, it's costly.
And I think most people appreciate that. That's just good. That's just good business practice to talk through it, right?
Too good.
Because there are those people that are just like, ratchet it up, get that price tag, move that comma down one. I'm like, no, we're not. No, don't do it.
We're not trying to do all that. Well, it has been fantastic talking to you, Joey. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yes. And Dominic's going to do our send off, right?
Hold on. Turning the hat around. So I ended the way I always do. It is your day. If you want transportation, do it. If you don't do it. Let them take the minivan. But don't let somebody talk you into something you don't want to do or talk you out of something you have your heart set on. It is your day. We always blow a kiss at the end, Joey. Want to blow a kiss?
Blow a kiss with us?
Let's do it.
See you next time.
Mwah.
Hey, so thanks for listening to our podcast. If you found any of this information helpful and you know somebody who may be engaged or is a maid of honor, maybe you could tell them and share it with a friend.
Absolutely. So screenshot this episode, share it on Instagram, on Facebook, and tag the wedding duo. We promise to share the love back. Also, if you are interested in more resources or the show notes, you can go to theweddingduo.co. We have one-on-one virtual sessions, a shop, all sorts of fun stuff. Check it out.